Okay. Well, let's move on to our expression for the day. So maybe you've heard of this expression before, and maybe you have something similar in your language. I'm sure everybody has something similar to think about the positive and the negative. So, for example, this expression, the glass is half empty and the glass is half full. So if you can kind of see here, like from my picture, we've got two glasses that have exactly the same amount of water. They look exactly the same. But the idea is, how do you see each glass? So for example, if you see the glass as half empty, maybe that means you think of things in a negative way. Like we see a situation and we think of it only negatively. Or maybe you see the glass as half full. In this case, maybe you try to see the positive in situations. So if you notice at the bottom of the screen, it says both glasses have the same amount of water, but one is looking at the situation as positive and the other one is looking at it negatively. So if you look at my picture, notice the glass on the left says, "You look great." And the glass on the right says, "I don't think so." So the funny thing here is they're both the same. The question is, how do you see it? So, in thinking about our expressions for this morning, of course, I'm going to ask you, what kind of person are you? Are you a half full or a half empty kind of person? Do you only see the negative in situations, or do you try to see things in a positive way? So, guys, tell us how you would describe yourself. And again, you can use a microphone, you can use the chat box. How would you describe yourself? Half full or half empty? How would you describe yourself? So everybody, if you can find something to write on or whatever. But anyway, so we're going to talk a little bit more about quantifiers this morning. So first off, I'm going to review a little bit of what we talked about last week, and hopefully you had a chance to do in the Burlington English app. So again, if you remember, quantifiers are words that we use often before nouns. And if you remember last week, we mentioned count nouns and non-count nouns, or nouns that we are uncountable in this case. Now, again, I'm not going to read everything necessarily here on the screen, but if you remember, we did discuss a couple of things. So I want to kind of illustrate here. So remember, when we use countable nouns, the first thing we need to understand is we use those countable nouns in the plural form when we use these words. So again, if you notice, we don't say friend, we say friends. So when we use these particular quantifiers, we have to use it in a plural way with countable words. Now, once again, you can see here on the screen all of the different types of quantifiers we use. So again, let's just quickly go through them. We have a lot of, many, some, several, and a few. Now, if I want to use them in the negative form, you will notice that some are the same. So for example, a lot of or many. But then the final one, any, is a word that we would use pretty much in the negative form, and we'll use in questions, which we'll talk about in just a moment. I do want to mention over here on the left side of the screen, so hopefully you can see that you can also use the word no as a quantifier as well. So for example, if you notice where it says he doesn't have any, that contraction not, so that's what I'm trying to mention here this morning, is that if we use the word any, we use it with the word not. He doesn't have any, not any. But it is possible to say he has no friends. Now, I have found, of course, that it really depends on what particular language you speak, which one seems more comfortable to you. For example, in Spanish, we use the word no to make things negative. So perhaps you do the same in your language. So it might seem a little strange to say he doesn't have any friends. But I do want to mention that this is very common in English to use not any. Now, again, in some languages, again, I'll use Spanish just as an example, it's perfectly fine to have two negative words in the sentence. So in this case, we might say he doesn't have no friends, like we would say that in Spanish, kind of the basic idea. I think we do that maybe in French too. But in English, we don't like to use two negatives. So in this case, if I use the word any, it's because I'm using the word not in the sentence, okay? Now, over on the right side, real quickly, when we use words that are not countable. So again, words like soda and many of the food items that we've talked about so far in this lesson, these are uncountable or non-count nouns. And again, you noticed last week that there were many similar words from both sides. So for example, a lot of, some, but instead of using the word few, we use the word a little. Now, I've mentioned in class, again, class, back in the past, that often English speakers and especially Americans often confuse the words a few and a little. For example, I believe what's happening is more people are becoming comfortable with non-count nouns, non-count quantifiers, even with countable words. So, for example, instead of saying a few, like if I said, I have a few friends, some people might say, I have a little friends. Or like at the grocery store, I have a little groceries. Which again, really to an English teacher, that sounds kind of bad, But the truth is, this has become very common in spoken English. So again, yes, sometimes people use this a little, as a way to express something countable, which is not correct, right? We should use quantifiers with countable words, right? So in this case, a little or even the word less, these words often get confused. And then finally, to talk about negative words. So for example, he doesn't have. So again, with non-countable words like a lot of, or in this case, much. Remember, much is the non-countable kind of version of many. And then finally, the same idea. He doesn't have any soda. So this was something that hopefully you had a chance to practice with in the Burlington English app from last time. Now, what I would like to do here this morning is talk a little bit more about quantifiers, not just what we see here, but thinking about some other types of quantifying ideas that we've talked about in class before. Now, I'd like to get some people to help me with this one. So here on the screen, let's talk about using questions. So for example, excuse me, Daniela, would you read what's here on the left side of the screen? So Daniela, can you read that for us?
Yes, Mr. John. With questions. Do you have any money time friends?
Okay, so over on the right side, it says, this question is asking if the thing is even possible. So if I say, do you have any of something, that means I don't know if you have it. So Daniela, could you read the example here on the right side?
Yes, example. I don't have any money to pay for this bill. Do you have any money? I'm not sure if you have anything.
So in this case, when people use the word any, you can use it in a question. So like I said, do you have any money? Do you have any time? Do you have any friends? What would be another example of a question that I could use the word any with? Do you have any? Who could give me another example?
Food?
Any, say it again?
Food?
Food? Do you have any food? Okay, that's a big question. Maybe your neighbor is asking you. Okay. Who else? Who else has an example for us?
Or hand soap? Hand soap?
Oh, that's a good one. Do you have any soap? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Anybody else? Asami, Saba, Mie, Rena, any other things we could use here?
Idea?
Yeah. Do you have any ideas? Okay. Or even we could use it in the singular. If we use it kind of as like a general idea. Do you have any idea about this? Okay. So sure, we could use it that way.
Do you have any suggestion?
Okay. Any. Now, of course, we would use that one in the plural, right? So any suggestions? Okay.
Yeah, suggestions.
Okay. That's good. Let's have one more example. Who could give us one more? Okay, Rena.
Water?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So any liquid? Do you have any Coke? Do you have any Pepsi? Do you have any tea? Any coffee? Yeah. So again,
Any
part
problems?
of any problems? Yeah. So again, the idea is we use the word any in questions because we're not sure if you have anything, if it's even possible that you have this. So again, that's the first thing we need to remember is that when we're making questions, if we're not sure if it exists, we would use the word any. So in this case, that would be part of the question. Now, could I say, do you have some? And the answer is you could. You could use the word some in these cases too. Do you have some money? Do you have some time? Do you have some friends? Sometimes the question might change a little bit, but still you could use the word some in these examples too. But most of the time we would use the word any. Okay, all right, let's move on to our next slide. So let's continue from there. So in this case though, if I use the word some, notice how we might use the words can or could. So Sergey, would you like to read the example here on the screen for us? The question on the left side. Sergey, can you see that?
Could I have some money, help, more, food?
Okay, so when we use the word some, notice we often use words like can or could. Okay, so in this case, we're asking for something that you think the person can give you. So could I have some money? So for example, maybe your son, Sergey, right? Your son is like, can I have some money, Dad? Right, yeah. All right, what are some other things people might use this in this case? Could I have some or can I have some? Guys, can you think of some other examples using this one? What do you think?
Could I have some some time maybe?
Okay. Could I have some time
for my future to decide my general problem?
Okay. Okay, so could I have some time to talk about my future? Okay. What about, like, for example, I know we're not in the classroom right now, but sometimes we need to borrow things from someone. Could I have some paper? Could I borrow some paper?
Maybe anything.
Books.
Could I borrow some books? Yeah, let's say, in fact, I could say, could I borrow some paper, some books? Yeah. Anything else we might borrow from somebody?
Could I have some spoon?
Okay, now here's a question. Would I use the word some with just one spoon?
Oh, some spoons.
So are you going to have like eat two spoons in both hands, Rena? Just eat like that?
Yeah, for family.
Oh, I see. So maybe you're setting the table. Okay. So yeah. Could you? So maybe we could say, could you give me some spoons? Okay. Some plates. Okay. Utensils. Yeah. Okay. That's good. All right. Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of had this picture. Maybe Rena's eating ice cream with two hands. Okay. So maybe. Okay. So
could I have some detergent?
Some detergent. Okay.
To wash my dirty
okay.
Clothes.
Detergent. Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
Some for cleaning up.
Yeah. So in this case, notice we're not asking if it exists. We're asking because we know the person has it. We know the person has some of these. Can I have some of them? So in this case, the question's a little different now. It's not, can I have any spoons? In this case, I know you have the spoons. I need them for putting them on the table. Or if you're in the classroom and you see someone has some paper, can I borrow some paper? Because I can see you have some paper. I'm not asking you, do you have any paper? So in this case, the word some is often used with words like can or could. So that could be a good example for how we use it. Okay? All right, let's move on to our next screen. Okay, now in talking about the word enough, some of you might remember we talked about this word back in the winter time when we were talking about things that we quantify as in, do we have enough of something or not enough? Now, let's look over on the left side first. So I have some plural here. And again, I'd like some people to help me. So Mie, would you mind reading the examples on the left side? Can you read those for me, Mie?
Yes. We have enough coins to pay the parking meter. Do you have enough books for the students? I don't have enough ingredients for this recipe.
All right, thank you. So if you notice, when I use countable words, we can use enough, but remember, we have to use them in the plural. So again, enough coins, enough books, enough ingredients. All of those have to be used in the plural. So we can't say, for example, enough coin No, because coin is something we count. So in this case, we use enough with countable words. Okay. Now let's look on the right side. All right, Rena, can you read the uncountable examples for us?
Yes. Do you have enough fruit? I don't have enough time. We have enough money to pay the ticket.
So again, the word enough works pretty well with all of these uncountable words too. So again, enough just means we need more. We don't have enough. So in just a moment, you're going to get a chance to practice making some examples with this word. But I just want to remind you that when we use the word enough, we must use it in a plural way if it's countable. And of course, we can use the word with uncountable things too, things that we don't count. So in this case, again, we can use it with fruit, time. I don't have enough, water in my glass, so I'm a half full and half empty glass. And then over on the left side, we think about things that we need more of. So that's something we're going to talk about here in just a moment. Okay, now guys, here comes the chance to try something a little different. This is something new for us here in our online class. So let's try it and see how it works today. Okay, so everybody, you're going to need a pen and pencil now and some paper for the activity. So hopefully you have some. And I might, again, this is going to be a challenge, but what I'm going to recommend here is when I bring up the screen where we're going to do the activity, you might want to write down everything. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few minutes to write down everything you see on the screen because you're going to need that information in just a moment. All right, so let me explain what we're going to do. All right, now the first thing I want you to do is I'm going to give you a few minutes. Okay, I'm going to turn off my microphone and everyone's microphones for just a moment. And what I want you to do is on your paper, you're going to finish these sentences. Okay, now number 4 and 5 are a little different, but let's look at each one. Okay, so first thing I want you to do is you're going to write down everything, but then you're going to finish the sentence. So for example, number 1 says, right now I don't have enough, and then blank. So you can finish that sentence. Number 2, when I am cooking, I like to use a lot of blank. So again, finish that sentence. All right, now number 3 is a little tricky. It says, I ate a little blank and a few blank for breakfast. So remember, one of these is not countable and one of these is countable. So again, finish that sentence. Now, it doesn't have to be true. You can make up something. You don't have to put maybe you say, Mr. John, I didn't have breakfast. Well, just make up something, invent something. Okay. And then number 4 and number 5, I want you to make a question. The first question I want you to use with how much. And the second question I want you to use how many. Okay. All right. So here's what I want you to do. So on your paper, again, just to make things easier, try to write everything you see on the screen, but finish the information that's missing. And then for 4 and 5, write a question with how much and how many. Okay? Well, everybody, our time is, we're starting to get a little close to time. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next screen. And I'm going to explain what we're going to try next. Okay, now this is my first time trying this here in the Zoom classroom. So let's see how it works. Because here's what's going to happen. Okay? So in just a moment, I'm going to put everybody into some small groups. So now on Zoom, this is what's called a breakout room. So in just a moment, you and a partner are going to kind of leave the Zoom classroom and are going to enter into your own room. Now, in this room, you and your partner will turn on your microphones and you will talk to each other. So you will be able to talk to each other. And this way, you will be able to share your answers from your activity. So I'm going to give you about 10 minutes or so to discuss your answers. Okay? Now, during this time, you will not be able to hear me. In fact, we will not be able to hear each other except the person in your room. So that's why this is a little new for me to try it, okay? Now, the only way I can communicate with you is called the broadcast message feature. It looks like a little chat box that when I send a message to you, it should appear in your room. But remember, it's not a chat box. I can't chat with you, and you cannot chat with other people outside of your room. So it's like you're in your own little space, okay? So it's just like the chat box, but it's just for me to communicate with you, okay? All right, so in just a moment, I'm going to put you into a room with someone else. So please make sure when you get into the room, you turn on your microphone. Now, you don't have to use your camera, but you do need your microphone so that you can talk to each other. And then I will message you after 10 minutes for everybody, and you will come back to the room, okay? All right, so this is something new here. So I'm going to go ahead and start the breakout room process. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment. All right, well, guys, first off, I want to thank you for doing that activity, and let's talk about what we're going to do next. So our next activity will be a reading activity. Now, what I did is I created a video. So I'm going to send you that video in your email when we're finished with our lesson. And the video is going to be the introduction to the reading activity. Now, the reading activity is in the Burlington English app. So I'm going to take a moment and show you where it is because it's there in the low intermediate health topic. So we've been talking about health in this chapter. So what I want you to do is watch the introduction, the video. It's about 15 or so minutes. And then I want you to do the reading activity called The Dangers of Sugar. So let me exit for just a moment from our presentation. So again, to find the activity, you go to Burlington English on the computer or your phone. Okay, so again, I'm going to log in here. So again, you notice see my name up there as the teacher. So remember, you go into courses. So that's where you guys are going to be going. Courses, and then of course, remember the low intermediate course is the one we're doing here in this class. And then student lessons. And then from there, we're in topic number 5, health. So the activity you're going to do is called The Dangers of Sugar, and it's activity number 3. It's listed right here. And I know, again, if you're using your phone, sometimes it's a little hard to see the text on the screen. So again, my advice is you might want to use this on the mobile platform, not the app. So use your browser, Safari or Google or something to read it. But if you can't, what I did is in the video that I made, I recorded the text. So for example, when you click on the reading, I actually include the text in the video, so that way you can see it in the video. That might be a little bit easier for you. Now, the thing I want to share with you though is you can I read the text for you in the video, but if you want to listen to it again, I did want to mention that in the text you can listen to it too. There is a play button over here on the left side of the screen, and let me turn on the share computer sound feature. I'll just play like a moment of it here. You can hear it.
The sugar problem.
So does everybody hear that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, I read it in the video, but if you want to go back and listen to it again in the program, in the app or on the computer, you don't have to go back to the video. You can still listen to it and read it here on the computer. So again, I know this is one of the difficulties if you're using it, Burlington English on your phone, is that the text is kind of small. You can expand the text, make it bigger or smaller, but my advice is you might want to use your mobile browser like Safari or Google on the phone, not the app, because then you can make the screen bigger or smaller. Okay, so that's going to be your activity for next time, is to watch that little introduction. It's just a 15-minute introduction to the reading activity, and then try the reading activity and the activities, the vocabulary and other activities for homework. And we're going to discuss the reading in our next chat. So that's going to be our next, one of our topics of discussion is discussing the reading and also discussing the vocabulary in the reading, because I would like to do some vocabulary activities too. Okay, now before we finish here today, just a reminder to everybody that our spring session finishes next week. So we're going to take a short break. So from Monday, May 18th to Monday, May 25th. So remember, May 25th is Memorial Day. So we'll take a little short break for 1 week, and then the summer session will begin again on Tuesday, May 26th. And we're going to continue the summer session until the end of June. So again, please remember we're going to be here online. Now, we did get an email from the college yesterday. They are going to have classes back at the campus in August, but we don't know We don't know what they're going to look like. We don't know if some of the classes are going to be online and some of the classes are in person. So right now we don't know anything specific for August, but that is part of the plan for the college. So we'll tell you more when we get more information, but still this is our
Mr.
schedule.
John,
Okay?
Mr. John,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
we don't have classes after June 1st?
After July 1st, that's correct. So in July, usually we take a break for a month and then we start again. Now we might do something in July. We're not going to do this schedule, but we might do something. Right now, Daniela, we don't have any information, but the summer session is going to finish at July 1st. We might do something else in July, but it's not going to be the same like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody. So our next chat, our final chat for the spring session will be next Tuesday, May 12th from 10 to 11. So once again, we will have one more chat session for the spring next week.